Greetings and welcome. My name is Remer with Zen Caregiving Project, and I'm delighted to be here with my colleague and dear friend, Mary Doane, and we're going to be sharing with you mindful caregiving, building resilience while improving quality of care. So we're going to spend some time looking at the role of mindfulness in building staff resilience, increasing a sense of well-being, and actually improving the quality of care in your facility or in your organization.
Yeah, thanks, Roy, and hi, everyone. We know that when caregivers are practicing mindfulness, they are more resilient, they're more present, they're more stable, they're happier, they're healthier, they're more connected to themselves, to the people they're caring for, to their work. It's kind of like mindfulness is the pebble that's dropped in the water, and the benefits just ripple out and ripple out.
I love that. Yeah, so we're going to look at, first off, the problem that we're addressing. And this is really workplace stress. And so for caregivers, for staff who are working with people who are aging and dealing with chronic or serious illness, with residents whose independence is decreasing, it can be extremely stressful.
Yeah. And stress is a problem, and it often doesn't feel good when we're experiencing it. But it's important to remember that stress isn't always bad, right? That our bodies, when we respond with stress, we're marshaling all of the resources that we have. So we want to be able to do that in a balanced way and a sustainable way. But it's important to remember, as Dr. McGonigal points out here, that stress is necessary, and it can signal that we're strong and we're responding to a challenge.
So maybe some of you have seen this image before, but I want to kind of break it down and um, share with you what we're looking at here. So, as Mary says, some stress is actually good. In fact, if there's too little stress in our lives or in our work, it can actually create a situation or mindset of boredom, or we may get a little lazy. So, the sweet spot that you can see here is the yellow into the light orange section. This is when we're feeling motivated and energized. We have a healthy focus, and we're really operating or working at our optimum level. It's only when the amount of work that we have to take on really exceeds our resources, both external resources and internal resources. And then we get to that downside of that curve where we begin to experience overwhelm and anxiety. We're feeling like we're being threatened or assaulted. And ultimately, this can lead to burnout and breakdown. So, with mindfulness, really what we're trying to do is extend or maximize that yellow zone, if you will, that you see on this chart. So I want to point out some of the impacts of too much stress, and I'm sure many of you are actually quite familiar with some of these symptoms of excessive stress. So we see a low sense of morale, a constant sense of high burden, low job satisfaction. We can begin to see absenteeism where workers are calling in sick. We begin to see signs of what we know as compassion fatigue. And ultimately, the inability to manage with high chronic stress can lead to burnout, a term I'm sure many of you have heard a number of times before. And I appreciate this particular definition of burnout from the World Health Organization, a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been managed successfully. And when we talk about managing stress, we're really not just talking about how we manage stress as individuals, but how the organization or system that we work within is managing stress on a more collective level. So we apply mindfulness to help us build our capacity to deal with stress. So what is mindfulness? A definition that I really appreciate is a flexible state of mind that pays attention to the present moment on purpose without judgment. A flexible state of mind that pays attention to the present moment on purpose without judgment. So I want to break this definition down just a little bit. So when we pay attention on purpose, we're noticing when the mind becomes distracted. We actually track when distracting or unuseful thoughts come into our awareness and are beginning to take us away from this quality of paying attention to what's happening, to what we're doing in this present moment. The without judgment piece is really important because we have these powerful brains that just naturally become distracted. So we have to redirect our focus again and again as distracting thoughts pull us away from what we could be thinking about or from the activity that we're engaged in. And it's really most helpful to be kind to ourselves when this happens again and again, because it will happen again and again. So I like this chart a lot. This looks at the number of articles that have been published about the benefits of mindfulness in dealing with stress, both in the workplace, at home. But we can see that, over the course of about 20 years, the research and the resulting articles that were published about mindfulness really, really shot up. So what we're seeing is the building of a really robust body of literature that shows the benefits of mindfulness, that conveys some of the evidence that has been building as researchers look at the advantages of cultivating mindful awareness for not just caregivers, but the population generally. Over to you, Mary.
Yeah, thank you. So we were really excited to be able to study this ourselves with family caregivers. We conducted a study in 2022, partnering with Betty Moore School of Nursing and the University of California at Davis. And we had results that echo just what Roy was describing about the benefits that family caregivers experienced and reported from learning mindfulness through our courses. So there were over 200 family caregivers. We were able to survey them before they took our course, right after completing the course, and then approximately 2 months later. And there were these really encouraging results that overall, something like a 28% decrease in reported depression, slightly less, but still well over 20% decrease in anxiety, decrease in experienced caregiver burden, and then this wonderful overall increase in well-being. These results were published in a UK-based journal called Mindfulness, And we're really excited to keep that going for more and more caregivers as we continue to share our work and bring our courses.
Yeah, so we are seeing that science actually supports the cultivation of mindfulness. And I want to acknowledge that this research, even after 20 years, is very much in its early stages, but it's really pointing out some exciting updates that are showing the potential for mindfulness to enhance our well being and reduce stress. This is extremely important in the workplace because even just looking at the senior living industry, we're finding that at least in the state of California, to offboard a staff person who's leaving because they're dissatisfied or burned out and to rehire a new caregiver staff person, the cost can range anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000. So there just isn't simply a benefit in terms of enhancing morale and well-being, but we can directly tie the benefits to the financial bottom line of a particular facility or health system.
So let's look again and a little more closely at these benefits of mindfulness. So these things: calm mind, concentration, awareness. Um, they sound nice and they have very real benefits and effects. So things like lowering our cortisol level, minimizing reactivity, being less exhausted by distraction, minimizing human error with increased concentration. That one really stands out for caregivers and in the workplace. Um, enhanced awareness, interrupting that rumination that we can all kind of get on the hamster wheel in our mind, rehashing a conversation or maybe an error, feeling bad about it. With mindfulness, we can recognize that we're doing that more quickly and kind of let that go. Supporting healthy self-care, caring for ourselves in the way that we need so that we can be present to do our jobs, to serve others, to care. All of these really potent benefits of mindfulness.
Yeah, so Mary, when we look at these three benefits to the caregiver, we begin to see the relationship to the care that they're providing and the relationship to the experience of the care recipient or the resident whom they're caring for. So I want to say a little bit about the role of resilience and how it relates to well-being. So we see that there is this relationship between mindfulness and the building of resilience, a word we hear a lot about these days, and then to the relationship between resilience and well being. So, resilience actually is what we could refer to as an intermediary between mindfulness and well being. So, the more we cultivate mindfulness, the easier it is to experience resilience. And then when we find that we're building our resilience, we just feel better about ourselves and our work situations. So you could say that the more resilient we are, the happier we become, even though a sense of well being is really more about just feeling happy. Let's break down resilience just a little bit more. So, we're really talking about a caregiver or a staff person's ability to self regulate their emotions. As Mary had mentioned, one of the benefits is less reactivity. And when we're less reactive, then we tend to feel better about ourselves and the job that we're doing. And resilience is also a quality of increased or enhanced self-compassion, which we'll talk more about in a little bit. And I would also include in the experience of resilience an enhancement or an increase in the experience of hope. You could even say optimism. So when we use what is called an effort reward model for looking at the role of work and stress, when we practice mindfulness, we see that mindfulness can actually decrease the emotional labor that we're exerting when we approach the work that we're doing. This is extremely important in the context of senior living communities. So it can be easy to become emotionally reactive or triggered. And that mind state, that state of emotional lability, if you will, can feel like we're exerting a lot of effort. It can be exhausting. So when we practice mindfulness, we have greater awareness of our emotions, and we can intervene when emotions begin to cause agitation. And we can actually reduce emotional reactivity, which makes us feel like we're not really working as hard to maintain the kind of attention and care that we're providing. So this results in a greater sense of balance in the work that we're doing. So we've talked about this a lot, and now we should maybe give this a try. Mary, you want to go ahead and take us into a little experiential activity of what it means to be mindful in the moment?
Yeah, thank you. I feel like it's always the right time for a few minutes of mindfulness. And we invite you to join us now in just a really brief breath awareness guided meditation. So whether you are familiar with this or not, just give it a try and be open as best you can. There's no way to do this wrong. And let's see how it feels. So we'll be just focusing on our breath, but I'll say a little bit more about options after we do a brief practice. So if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, please do so, or you can just lower your gaze wherever you're seated or if you're standing. Just kind of turn inward and gently become aware of the fact that you're breathing, right? We're breathing all the time, something our bodies know how to do without our needing to think about it or direct them. But we just become aware that this is occurring, bringing your attention gently to the natural rhythm of the breath, feeling the breath as it moves into your body when you breathe in, and continuing to feel that breath as it moves back out of your body when you exhale. Doing that, continuing to stay aware. Maybe you feel the breath moving in your nostrils as you breathe in. It's a little cool, perhaps. When you breathe back out, maybe it's a little bit warmer. It's really natural to start to notice how busy your mind might be, lots of thoughts. Maybe there are sounds around you, especially if you're in your workplace. Maybe there's sensations in your body that want your attention. All that is really normal. But when we notice that that's happening, just see if you can let those things rest and keep paying attention to the breath. Breathing in, breathing out. Feeling the air flowing in, feeling the air flowing back out. And completing that brief practice. So thank you for trying that out, opening your eyes again if you haven't already. And just to say that we traditionally, and it feels simplest to use the breath as the focus, but it can be other places in the body, sometimes just feeling the weight of the body, the places where your body's in contact, feet on the floor, sitting bones on a chair. It can also be emotions, thoughts, or anything in your environment around you. So you can always bring your focused attention and practice mindfulness, whatever your experience is, whatever's happening, wherever you are.
Hmm. Thank you, Mary. What I really noticed was how busy my mind is today, and so not uncommon. So let's say a little bit about what happens when we notice the mind is distracted. So I spoke of this a little bit earlier, but let's go back and you can see this wonderful diagram on the screen that shows the cycle that we go through ideally when we're practicing or cultivating mindfulness. So let's see, we'll start on the left there with focused attention. So let's say we're following Mary's instructions and we're really focused on our breath. And then before we know it, we start thinking about our next meal, or did I leave the kettle on the stove, or, you know, um, how is a loved one doing in this moment? The mind just naturally becomes distracted. So then we notice that our thoughts, our attention has shifted and we are in distraction. And then what do? We redirect the mind. We redirect our attention back to the focus of our attention, back to the breath, back to emotions, back to the sounds of the birds outside our window. And we just repeat the cycle again and again because we've been fortunate enough to be born with these really extraordinary brains. And the brain just simply creates thoughts constantly. So it's very natural to get distracted.
And we can practice mindful awareness without needing anything extra, any special training or equipment. We don't even need any extra time. So if we have the opportunity to sit quietly and practice meditation for a few minutes each day, that's wonderful. I do it myself. I know, Roy, you do as well, kind of a more formal meditation. But what we really want to emphasize here is that that's not required, right? We can bring this quality of awareness and mindfulness to any activity that we're doing, and we can do it right there in the moment. So really practical ways to integrate this. So let's talk about some of those. You can feel your feet in contact with the floor and the ground beneath you. You can pause for a moment and just feel them there. You can even do that as you're walking.
A really lovely inquiry is to simply ask yourself, where is my breath? Where is my breath in this moment? You could be in the midst of some caregiving activity. You could be pausing after feeling your feet on the ground, but simply finding your breath and even sticking with it for 2 or 3 breaths.
Another way is to listen to the environment around you. So it feels peaceful to think, I'm going to listen to the bird song or the breeze rustling through the trees. But this can also be becoming aware of the sound environment of traffic outside, or people talking in the next room, or machines making noise as they're operating. Whatever the sound environment is that you're in, just stopping and paying full attention to it.
And then you could pause before you enter a room or approach a bedside or approach someone in a wheelchair. You could just simply pause and even shake out your hands, just releasing any held energy that's not needed in the next encounter. So really just stopping at the door frame, stopping at the door before you knock, just checking in with yourself.
Another one, and this is a personal favorite of mine, is just bringing a hand gently to your chest over your heart and noticing that sensation. So the gentle weight of your hand. Perhaps your hand feels a little bit warm, or perhaps it feels cool, just noticing the temperature. And this also, we know, kind of signals to the body. It's a soothing gesture, a gesture of support, comfort, recognition, and we can use it to ground ourselves and remind ourselves of presence just right here in this moment.
A practice that is extremely useful and easy to remember is the stop practice. So with this stop practice, we basically are just pausing. We're stopping. We're disrupting thoughts that perhaps are not very useful in this moment. And we could literally stop what we're doing, or even in the midst of activities, we're just pausing the mind long enough to give permission to take a breath. So stop, take a breath, which allows us to notice physical sensations, and then to observe, like, what's happening here? What's happening in the mind? What's happening in the body? What's happening in the space around me that perhaps is causing a lack of ease or perhaps causing agitation? So we're observing. And then finally, the fourth step is to then proceed with awareness. So the stop practice is wonderful because even in challenging situations, it really allows us just to pause and reset.
So here we want to bring in this quality of compassion, right? And talk about the relationship between mindfulness and compassion. So caregivers are naturally expressing compassion. They are responding to difficulty, suffering, illness, challenge. They're acting to care for people and support them, reduce and relieve their pain if possible. And mindfulness is the first part of compassion, awareness of suffering. And compassion is an active response to that awareness. So, this quality of mindfulness that we've been talking about and practicing a little bit with is like the foundation for compassion, both the compassion that we express and act towards others as caregivers, and also that we can offer to ourselves. And this is really important for caregivers as well. So when we are talking about compassion, we want to remember to include ourselves. And this beautiful quote that you see on the screen here from meditation teacher Jack Kornfield just reminds us to include ourselves in our compassion so that our compassion is complete. We don't leave ourselves out. And this is something that is easy to do for many of us, and especially for caregivers. And when we are caregiving, we're so focused on the other person, which is appropriate and beautiful, but we want to remember to include ourselves in compassion as well. So let's try this beautiful self-compassion break exercise. And this is a way that we can bring compassion to ourselves right in the moment of experiencing something challenging or difficult. Right? So this comes to us from the work of Dr. Kristen Neff. And the idea is that we are using mindfulness to be aware of something that's challenging for us, that we are bringing a sense of shared common humanity to our experience, remembering that we're not alone when we face challenges, and then bringing some kindness and support to our own difficult experience, much in the way that we do to those we care about and to our dear friends, so that we're simply being a friend and a mentor to ourselves. So this is a really supportive, strengthening practice that we can do really any time that we're experiencing our own challenges or our own suffering. Self-soothing, self-coaching, self-mentoring, self-compassion. So I invite you to try this with me just for a moment or two. If you'd like to close your eyes, if that's comfortable and safe, and just take a moment to bring to mind something that's challenging for you right now, something that's frustrating, maybe disappointing. Maybe there's a physical discomfort or pain, something simple that you can just bring to mind, and just recognize that this is real for you. Let it be true. And you might say quietly to yourself in your own mind, this is hard for me. This is challenging right now. And then broadening out your awareness gently, recognizing that while you are the only one having your particular experience, other people face challenges too. Other people know what it's like to be angry, disappointed, frustrated, or in pain. So you might say to yourself silently in your own mind, other people struggle also. This is not fun, but it's just a part of life. And then finally, that self-kindness, that self-coaching, some gentle, simple words of support for your own experience. So you might say to yourself, I can do this. Or you might say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. Something really simple that's appropriate for your experience. May I be patient. And then you can open your eyes again and we'll keep going after
Thank
that
you.
short self-compassion break. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And I just want to say I use that practice quite a lot, and it really, really helps me get through those moments where I'm facing a particular challenge, maybe challenging behavior of someone I'm interacting with, or a moment of doubt, or even just overwhelm. So thank you for walking us through that. So we want to leave you with some things that you can really put into place immediately before you perhaps make a decision to really fully integrate mindfulness training into your facility or to bring this into your staff training. So some things you can start to do right after this meeting is, for instance, beginning any meetings that you have or stand-ups or even just one-on-one conversations with staff or family members, you could invite a moment of silence. You could invite people to find their breath, to ask that question, where is our breath? Just a small pause. You could encourage your team members to take micro breaks throughout their day. This is a break of just a few moments to sit quietly, to pay attention to their body, to pay attention to their mind. Definitely encourage them to turn off the phone, to put it in silent mode, to leave it by their side, and just give themselves a mindful break. Or you could just simply begin to pay attention to how you might be modeling present moment awareness in your encounters. Because as a leader in your facility or in your organization, understandably, you're busy and you're balancing or juggling a lot in your life. But to convey to people that when you pause to interact with them, you're fully present. You can really begin to model this kind of mindfulness, this kind of present moment awareness. Throughout your facility or throughout your office, you could post little signs that remind people to practice the stop. So that universally understood image of the stop sign, you could put those up. And this begins to really integrate into the culture this this practice of just pausing when things begin to get a little heightened, emotionally speaking. You might begin to just acknowledge to coworkers, to staff, to colleagues that in this particular moment you might be experiencing a little bit of vulnerability, so that you're conveying that you too are human. You face challenging situations, moments of doubt or overwhelm, and you have the courage to be kind to yourself. So this isn't expressing a neediness, it's really about expressing your authentic human nature. So we encourage you to become a real champion of mindful caregiving. And this requires that you start with yourself right where you are. Doesn't matter if you've had experience with meditation, doesn't matter if you've been familiar with mindfulness or not. You can start right where you are and begin to make space in your life to cultivate mindful awareness by integrating these kinds of pauses, these kinds of moments where you attune to what's happening right here, right now. And people will notice. They will notice that you're calmer, you're more grounded, you're more available. So, if you're interested in bringing the kind of support to your community that we're talking about, that we're offering, I encourage you, I invite you to get in touch with us. You can contact us via email at business@zencaregiving.org. You can phone us and leave a message at 415-913-7682, or simply visit our website and avail yourself and your staff of the resources that we have available, and you can reach out to us via the web. So I strongly encourage you to return to our website from time to time. join our mailing list, receive our newsletters that have all kinds of resources included, and you will become aware of future webinars just like this one so that you and your staff can benefit from what Zen Caregiving Project has to offer. So finally, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And it's been a pleasure to introduce some of our work to you. And I'll pause here and give Mary a chance to say goodbye, and then we'll end our webinar.
My thanks to you all too, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, take care now. Thank you.